Today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating argument from within Islamic theology, one that connects divine revelation, our own ability to reason, and the absolute freedom of belief. We're going to unpack a perspective that puts rationality right at the very heart of faith. So, here's the big question that's been debated for centuries, right? Are faith and reason just two completely separate worlds that can't ever meet? Well, the source material we're looking at today tackles this head-on. It proposes that not only can they coexist, but that faith is actually founded on reason.
All right, so let's start right there with that foundational claim. How exactly does this viewpoint bridge that supposed gap between what we believe and what we can reason? You see, the core argument is pretty straightforward. For a message to be truly universal, it has to make sense. It has to be rational. I mean, if it's meant for all of humanity, it can't be illogical, right? So the thinking goes that the very claim of a universal message means its foundation must be reason. In this view, religious belief and rationality, well, they become synonymous. But you know, a claim is one thing, backing it up is another. So let's take a look at how this argument is built. It all starts with a major emphasis on the intellect and on learning. The material points us to a period in history where intellectual and scientific pursuits weren't seen as separate from religion. They were actually inspired by it. The drive for knowledge in philosophy and science and all kinds of fields drew its energy directly from what the Quran was saying about the importance of learning. And here's where the sheer scale of it really hits you. A scholar cited in the text actually went through and tallied up all the verses that call for rational thought. And the number is just staggering. Roughly 750 verses. That's about 1/8 of the entire Quran, all encouraging believers to study, to reflect, and to use their God-given reason. And this wasn't just some nice, abstract encouragement. It was framed as a core obligation. This quote, which is attributed to the Prophet of Islam, positions that search for knowledge not as just an option, but as a fundamental duty for every single person, man or woman. Okay, so the case for reason is laid out loud and clear. But this is where the argument takes a really fascinating turn, because it adds a crucial prerequisite for that reason to actually, work. So, if reason is the tool, is that all you need? Can you just pick it up and find the truth? Well, the perspective here argues that nope, there's a necessary condition you have to meet first before any honest inquiry can even begin. Now, to explain this, the analysis zooms in on this opening line from the Quran's second chapter, and it asks a really interesting question. What's the point of a book claiming to be a guide for people who are already righteous? I mean, isn't guidance for people who are lost? This apparent paradox, that's the whole key. The answer it proposes is this idea of inner truth. Basically, it's the state of being true to yourself. The idea is that any seeker of truth, whether religious or secular, has to start with an honest and unbiased mind. Think about it. Guidance, whether it's from a holy book or a science textbook, can only really help a mind that's open to it. If your mind is clouded by prejudice, as the text says, you just can't arrive at an unbiased conclusion. The evidence could be perfectly rational, but the lens you're looking through is distorted. So, this idea of inner truth solves one problem. But as the text points out, it opens up a much, much more difficult one. Because if inner truth is the essential ingredient, well, a huge dilemma pops up. And this is the absolute crux of the issue. Who on earth is qualified to look into another person's heart, into their mind, and reliably judge their inner truth, their sincerity? This question shifts the entire argument from a personal journey to a massive societal one. Now, the text offers a really nuanced answer here. It suggests that for someone like a prophet, you could judge their inner truth by looking at their consistent, exemplary behavior over a whole lifetime. But, and this is a huge but, it says that method absolutely cannot be applied to ordinary people. For the rest of us, our situations, our level of understanding, our intentions, they're all over the map, and besides, anyone can hide what they're truly thinking. And this whole problem of being unable to judge someone gets even deeper when we're talking about personal faith. The argument here is that even if someone holds what looks to you like the maddest of beliefs, an outsider has absolutely no way to know for sure that that person is being deliberately dishonest. They have a fundamental right to believe they are right, no matter how crazy it seems to anyone else. So, if we can't reliably judge what's going on inside someone else's head, how should society handle all these differences in belief? This brings us to the powerful resolution that the source material proposes. The answer, according to the text, is completely unambiguous. It's absolute. It highlights this famous verse from the Quran, which really serves as the bedrock for this entire argument. The principle is crystal clear. When it comes to matters of faith, you cannot use force, period. And look, this isn't just some general guideline. It's reinforced at the highest possible level. The source points to this verse, where the prophet himself is told that his role is to remind and to advise, not to control people or act like a judge over their beliefs. Okay, so if force is forbidden, what are you supposed to do? What's the approved method for sharing your convictions? Well, this verse gives the answer. The method is persuasion. The tools you're given are wisdom and beautiful, gentle reasoning. It's an argument for a free marketplace of ideas, not a battlefield. So what you get is this, what the text calls the divine global plan for how ideas are supposed to be handled. Let's just walk through it. First, every single person gets the fundamental right to believe whatever they want. Second, nobody is allowed to force their beliefs on anyone else. Third, the only method you can use is reasoned, respectful persuasion. And finally, the ultimate judgment of a person's inner sincerity, that's left for God and God alone. So if we boil it all down, the core takeaway is this. In this framework, the only tool you need to engage with truth is your rational mind. And the only acceptable way to share that truth is through persuasion, totally free from even a whisper of coercion or threat. And we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If faith is truly built on reason, and if it can only be shared in an environment of absolute freedom, what does that tell us about the real nature of belief itself?